Good afternoon. This is Suravi Kar Roy. The title of the paper is an analysis of the feminization of vulnerable employment with recent evidence from Indian states, written by Dr. Sweta Lahiri and Mrs Suravi Kar Roy. We are from Department of Economics, Serombo Chandra College under University of Calcutta. Objective of the study: India, in spite of being the third largest economy in the world in PPP GDP, is engendered with most of the working mass confined and constrained in vulnerable employment status. As per the World Development Indicator data, the percentage is 70 for men, whereas it is more severe for women with 75%. The vulnerable employment considers contributing family worker and own account worker. Recent studies highlight that women are often overrepresented in this employment category, and literature considers this issue as issue of feminization of vulnerable employment. A large share of women in this category has implication that country is unable to harness properly a large segment of potential capacity, and this in turn threatens country's growth prospect. So it is important to analyze how the incidence of feminization of vulnerable employment has changed in recent times compared to India's neighboring countries. How significant is this feminization of vulnerable employment to India's growth potential in pre-post COVID situation compared to its neighboring countries? What is current status or situation of feminization of vulnerable employment across the major and special category states? How individuals' demographic and social characteristics bore significance in framing the gender bias in such precarious employment across the different states of India? Some important literature has been considered, some important work in literature review we have considered in our analysis. Like some of the works are S. Sundari 2020, work by Roshni Chakravarti 23, by ILO in 2011, Maria et al. 2022 are some of them which are considered. Data source and descriptive. In the first part, we have considered the time series analysis and using secondary data from World Development Indicator for India and 8 neighboring countries like China, Bangladesh, Nepal, Bhutan, Pakistan, Maldives, Sri Lanka and Afghanistan for the period 1991 to 2021. For the third one, to have a close look into the post-COVID situation of feminization of vulnerable employment for different individual demographic and socio-economic characteristics, we use the PLFS data for 2021-22. Which considers key employment and unemployment indicator like LFPR, WPR, UR, etc. And we also have incorporated in cross-section analysis the multinomial logit estimation. Trend analysis has been considered when the trend is actually showing there is a downward trend of vulnerable employment in India, which is with exception in the year 2020 in COVID year there was a spike. After that it has fallen, but throughout the period of study it has been always higher compared to the developed countries of the world like USA, UK. And not only this, during this period of our study, we have always found that the percentage for female vulnerable unemployment has always been higher than that for the male in this period. And this draws our attention towards the gender perspective of our analysis. Trend analysis, regression analysis has been considered for the variables like vulnerable employment, female and male, and GDP per person employed, and there was a possibility of having non-stationarity in the data. So we have it was detected by augmented Dickey-Fuller test, and we have differenced the time series variables and the series to make it stationary, and then we have run the regression with H0 vulnerable employee male female having no impact upon GDP against having some impact upon the GDP. And this exercise has been carried out for 9 countries, and the results of the regression are tabulated and presented here. For India, China, Bangladesh, here we find that in almost all the countries there is a negative relation between the vulnerable employment in most of the vulnerable employment and GDP. And in India we find that it's more statistically significant for vulnerable employment female, the impact upon GDP. And this actually verifies our hypothesis of feminization of vulnerable employment. Now I would like to request Dr. Sweta Lahiri to continue this discussion. Thank you.
Very warm good evening to esteemed delegates and laureate scholars present here. This is Dr. Sweta Lahiri from Herumbo Chandra College, Faculty in Economics, Department of Economics. Here at the outset, we have already stated that our issue is to observe the vulnerability of employment among women in a comparison with male and in the context of India. In our cross-section analysis, we have considered periodic labor force survey data which is considered to be a vast, detailed data set available in India, focusing on key employment, unemployment indicators. This particular cross-section analysis are organized in two segments. In our first segment, we look into the issue of vulnerability across among male and female, across the sectors they belong to, rural, urban, different caste, religion, their acquired levels of education. This is also followed by an exploration of this vulnerability across different states in India, general category and special category. In our following section, we execute a multinomial logic analysis to find out the determinant factors in shaping vulnerability of employment among women in rural and urban areas. So let us just begin our presentation. Our analysis shows that women are overrepresented in the category of vulnerable employment, where they are 10 percentage points more likely than their male counterpart to be in the category. In the rural area, the situation is more precarious, where with nearly 71% of employed women engaged in the one, the gender disparity is quite balanced in the context of urban area. Comparing the age groups, we see with increase in the age group, the gender disparity in vulnerable employment decreases. However, one observation is that for the older age cohort, the vulnerability increases compared to the younger part in the context of both male and female. Now we have compared the own account and unpaid family category of worker, and we can see that male worker are more likely to be one own account worker, and female are more equally likely to be comprised in both the categories. Comparing the general category, special category and union territory averages, we find that this gender disparity is glaring in special category states, and it is almost at the national average among the union territories. And GCS, among the GCS, the gender disparity is there. However, it is lesser than that compared to ACS. Among the different caste, ST and OBC women are likely to overrepresent in the category of overrepresented in the category of vulnerable employment for both male and female. We can say this. And among the different religion, we can find that feminization of vulnerability is more likely among the Christian. Comparing different states, we find that Uttar Pradesh, Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, Odisha and Telangana are the GCS where where the vulnerability is more than national average, and Chhattisgarh, Rajasthan and Telangana, the gender disparity is glaring. Among the special category states, Himachal Pradesh, Nagaland, Mizoram are the states where women are nearly 30 to 20 percentage point more likely to be in the precarious status. Only in Tripura, Meghalaya, the situation is comparatively under consideration. For our estimation analysis, we have considered the employed age group only, and because the group of women who are more likely to have completed at least secondary education, and the households are also likely to be comprised with alive household head members. Here, the dependent variable is a categorical variable. We conduct a multinomial logic analysis. Dependent variable assumes 0 if the person do not belong to the vulnerable category. Assumes 1 if the respondent is identified as own account worker. 2 if she is a family unpaid family worker. Now, the explanatory variables and control variables are the following. Among the explanatory variable, we see that the elder women are less likely to be in the precarious status. With increase in educational level, female are less likely to be own account worker. However, such negative association is observed at the lower end of the education and very upper end of the education. That too in urban area, the strength of such education is higher in urban area. In reducing the probability to be in the unpaid worker of education is more in rural area compared to urban area. Women are therefore general education has a very complex and significant role to play in reducing or in changing the vulnerability among workers. Married women are more likely to be in the precarious status of employment. Size of family often considered often is seen as a constraint, which is also supported by our analysis. Women of female headed households are better placed, and unreserved category are also found to be better placed. Any vocational training, formal training, and experience opens their possibility, increases the probability to be in the good quality employment. In conclusion, therefore, we can say that the government must take initiatives which are quite demand side, which may increase the employability among the educated women, making payment of wages more general neutral, addressing systematic issues such as fewer women in the top position of management, etc. And in conclusion, we say that this particular research has some further research agendas, and they are the following. And here I conclude my our research, or this particular research. Thank you. I wish a success to this particular seminar.